PhoneDog.com. This, on the other hand, is not Aaron from PhoneDog.com. This is the HTC Desire with US Cellular. It's the carrier's second Android device, and it's one of a couple others that are going to be on the network by the end of the year. The Galaxy S, they've already announced, the Acclaim is already out, and the Desire is the second one. It's the high-end device to have on US Cellular right now with a 1 GHz processor, Snapdragon processor, 3.7-inch Super TFT display. HTC had that issue with the AMOLED displays where they were having trouble replenishing the stock, so they switched out to Sony's Super TFT display. So the Desire is one of the first retail models, along with the new batch of the Droid Incredibles that's using the Super TFT display. So that's there, 3.7 inches, 5-megapixel camera, Android 2.1, a nice high-end device on the nation's 6th largest carrier and biggest regional carrier in the United States. So we're going to jump right into a review. Enough of that. HTC Desire, high-end Android device, US Cellular. Full review starts right now. So here's the HTC Desire with US Cellular, and look, I already have a voicemail. I just feel so loved. And give you a quick recap if you didn't catch the unboxing. Volume rockers on the left, micro USB port on the bottom. Top has the 3.5mm headphone jack and the power button. Camera on the back, 5-megapixel. And if you're looking at this point and thinking, this looks almost identical to the Nexus 1, you're spot on. It really is a Nexus 1 with HTC Sense UI. Slightly different design changes, physical buttons and optical trackpad on the bottom versus the capacitive buttons and the trackball on the Nexus 1. And, a battery cover that's fully removable, or I should say removes, can't talk today, that comes off entirely versus one like the Nexus 1 that kind of split in the middle. So a couple design changes, but overall a very similar device. And it's funny, having used this for a couple of weeks, I'd forgotten how much I missed the build quality of the Nexus 1. It came out in January and I used it for a couple of weeks and loved that nice metal feel, and it felt good in the hand. And then if you think back, in April, the Droid Incredible came out, and while it answered some of the issues, at the time, they wanted a device like the Nexus 1 on Verizon. It came with built-in storage. It came with Sense UI. The build quality leaves a little bit to be desired if you're used to the Nexus 1 and the Desire. Nice metal feel here versus more of a plasticky feel on the Droid Incredible side. So, and even with the Evo, it feels, given the size, it fits in the hand a little bit differently, and it makes it feel a little bit more sturdy. But there's still a noticeable plastic feel across the board with the Evo. So, a couple things there. I've always been a fan of the Nexus 1 build, and that continues over to the Desire. I like how the lip kind of curves at the top there slightly. It kind of gives it the Hero-esque design element there. But it's a nice device. On a hardware front, I've been really pleased with it. To recap on the specs, 1 GHz Snapdragon processor, 5-megapixel camera, Android 2.1, has a 3.7-inch Super TFT display. So, this, as I said before, this is one of the first retail devices that's coming out with the Super TFT display, Sony's Super TFT display, versus the AMOLED display that most of these devices started with. They were having issues with production and keeping the AMOLED display in stock, more so with Samsung's Galaxy S line coming out. So HTC made the decision to switch to Super TFT. Unfortunately, my Droid Incredible is a Super TFT device as well, but given my experience with AMOLED, I didn't notice a change. People have been asking me, hey, does it look different? Super TFT, is it a noticeable difference because HTC said it wasn't? No, it looks just exactly like the AMOLED displays that I remember when the Incredible came out. Looks like the Super AMOLED displays on the Galaxy S. Very beautiful, very vibrant, and full of color. So if you worked with the Droid Incredible or the Evo or any other sense-laden HTC device in the past 6 months or so, you're familiar with the software on the Desire. It's running Android 2.1 with HTC Sense UI. Typical 7 home screens on the front, as you can see, with the ability to pan out and go to certain screens. A nice little touch on HTC's part. That's still there. Software is very familiar to the Droid Incredible and the Evo, with a few US Cellular customizations. You'll notice the wallpaper right away. The stock wallpaper is US Cellular's colors, and you can see some customized programs in the App Store. Not Find a Starbucks. I downloaded that when I was craving some coffee the other day. Things like My Contacts Backup, Tone Room Deluxe, and Your Navigator. So you'll notice that those are US Cellular specific. So we'll have a look at those first. My Contacts Backup, very similar to Verizon's Backup Assistant. Obviously backs up your contacts, as it says. And then we can go down here and look at Tone Room Deluxe. Gives you the opportunity for ringtones and other things like that, and we'll wait while it loads. Very responsive device, as you would expect, being a 1 GHz Snapdragon processor. Very fast, Android 2.1, and the newer version of Sense UI, which is what comes on this, helps that tremendously as well. So here's Tone Room Deluxe. You can go down through the current songs. It's available as a ringtone or a ringback tone. So if I wanted to make Blah 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 by Kesha, my ringback tone, well, pretty much everybody in the world would laugh at me, but it would be a phenomenal ringback tone. Then I could set it as a ringtone as well. So that's an option. And then last but not least, on the US Cellular front, your Navigator Deluxe, which is their version of Telenav. Looks very similar to any other Telenav version you've seen. Drive to, search maps and traffic, share, and more. So we can put in an address, favorites, cities, businesses, all of the above, and navigate while on the go. It's one of those things, though, with Android 2.1, I've never really understood a need to pay the $9.99 monthly fee for Telenav when you have Google Maps pre-installed. And to me, it interfaces so much better with the browser. You go to Google, you type in Walmart, it knows your location, it tells you the local Walmarts, and you can go from there and actually route yourself from where you're at to the Walmart. So it's a nice benefit, and it interfaces well with Android, so I'm not quite sure the purpose of your Navigator Deluxe, but hey, it's on there and available if you want it. Otherwise, the App Store, very similar to other builds of Android and Sense UI we've seen. Icons are very similar. Let's go into a couple of different ones here. We'll look at the camera. Let's do a test shot first. Start at the top. And you can see a couple that I've already taken. The Droid actually had an issue with the Droid 2 fluctuating signal strength. Took a picture there, but you can see doesn't really do it justice in the camera, but very clear picture quality. So we'll back up here and we'll take a picture of that, the Magic Mouse. Let's get a close-up on the Apple logo. And you can see even at 5 megapixels, it's a very good camera. Obviously, maybe not to the likes of the Droid Incredible, the Evo, but a very good camera, much better than average. Great camera for on the go, and then likewise with the video camera. You can see we'll do a test video as well. We're gonna do the mouse. That's like the best test video you've ever seen. So we'll go back, have a look at that. So obviously the camcorder works well as well. It's not going to replace, as I always say in my reviews, it's not going to replace your usual camcorder, but it's great for shots on the go. I want to show you. We'll scroll down to people, which is what they call their contacts, and I love the way they organize their contact list. We'll go to Old Man Baker as a test. I love the way it's organized and the way it's laid out. You have your picture up here, your mobile, you can send a message based on the numbers you have, store your address, all the typical things that you can do with most contact lists, but you can send them to voicemail directly. So if it's somebody you're not in the mood to talk to that day, you can send the call directly to voicemail. But particularly, I love the bottom structure here, how it goes. You details, you press and hold, details, messages. So if I had any correspondence in terms of messages with Old Man Baker, it would show up in text messaging right here, which is nice. So you can continue to scroll over. Mail shows up in emails. One thing I don't like about the mail is, unless I'm missing something, I haven't been able to get Gmail to show up. It only shows up with POP and other POP and IMAP-based solutions. So if you're using a Yahoo address, for example, it would show up in here. But I use Gmail or Google Apps for everything, and none of my messages show up. But a neat feature nonetheless. Updates and events from Facebook, if you have your Facebook account linked. A gallery, link to Facebook, link to Flickr, you can see pictures there. And then your call history, so if I'd had any call history with Old Man Baker, it would all show up. So it's nice. I can scroll directly to a contact and say, when did Old Man Baker and I talk last week? I can scroll over to call history and it'll tell me the time and the date. Assuming that you haven't deleted your call history, it'll tell me the time and the date that we spoke. And then I can scroll over to messages and see if we've talked about whatever it is that I want to talk about. So it's nice to have it all in a little drawer right there, where it's all easily accessible and able to get to on the fly. So it's nice organization on HTC's part. I'll show you the messaging menu as well, which if you've used an HTC device in the past, even year or 2 years with Sense, very little has changed here in terms of the menu front. So I'm going to pull back. We'll send a message to Old Man Baker, which isn't a real number, but see it pops up there, and it's threaded text messaging, of course, and when you scroll back out, it shows up in a thread, And if that was a real number and I responded, beside Old Man Baker, it would say 2 or 4 or 6 or however many text messages we've sent back and forth. And that's including sent and received. So if he was to respond, I keep saying Old Man Baker like it's this fictional character. Old Man Baker is me, you know. If it was to respond back, it would say Old Man Baker parentheses 2. So to give you an idea. So it allows you to keep track of how many messages you've sent back and forth on that front. So